I've always heard that marriages don't explode, they just quietly deflate. Turns out, mine didn't even hiss. It just sighed and went flat one Tuesday evening. It started so gradually, I didn't even notice. 3 years in, we were no longer us. We were a well-coordinated roommate arrangement with shared bills and separate playlists. Dinner used to mean stories, teasing, her laughter echoing across the kitchen. Now it meant her scrolling TikTok while I talked to the air. "Hey, did you hear that thing about—" she mumbled, eyes glued to her screen. "Cool, I'll just keep talking to myself." My favorite audience. No reaction, just the soft glow of her phone screen lighting the emptiness between us. The worst part? There wasn't even a big fight to blame. No betrayal, no screaming, just this slow, invisible leak of interest. Like someone unplugged the spark and forgot to tell me. We still said "love you" sometimes, but it sounded like a line from a contract renewal. She used to look at me like I was something special. Now she looked through me like I was furniture she forgot to move out. Our friends didn't notice. At dinners or parties, we played the role of stable couple. So well, we deserved an Oscar. She'd smile, I'd nod. People would say things like, "You guys are perfect together?" Yeah, like IKEA furniture. Pretty on the outside, but held together by silent resentment and one missing screw. One Friday night, we were at our friend's place. Jason, that one friend who thinks he's a stand-up comedian because he once got a chuckle at work, told some story. Everyone laughed, including her. And not just a polite laugh, a real one. Her head tilted back, eyes bright, hand on his arm. That used to be my moment. That used to be our thing. I smiled and took a sip of my drink, pretending not to notice. But the whiskey burned more than usual. Jason turned to me. "Man, you're quiet tonight." "Just learning from the master," I said. "Maybe I'll sign up for your comedy class." He laughed awkwardly. She didn't even look up. That night on the drive home, I said, "You seem to enjoy yourself." She stared out the window. "Yeah, it was nice. You laughed a lot." "Sorry, should I have kept a straight face?" "Depends." "Are we still married, or is this an audition for single life?" She rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic." "Yeah," I said, forcing a smirk. "Someone's got to add emotion to this relationship." The rest of the drive was silent, except for the sound of my pride folding itself neatly into the glove box. At home, she went straight to bed. No kiss, no goodnight, just, "I'm tired." I brushed my teeth in the dark because turning on the light felt too bright for how cold the room had become. She lay facing the wall, and I watched the shape of her shoulders under the blanket. There was a time I knew every inch of that silence, what it meant, what it hid. Now it was just blank. Over the next few weeks, nothing technically changed. We still shared breakfast, still asked how the day was, but her tone was flat, like she was reciting from a manual titled Minimal Human Interaction for Spouses. "Did you feed the dog?" "Yeah." "Thanks." That was it. That was marriage now. Love in 3 lines or less. Sometimes I'd look at her across the couch and think, when did we stop being curious about each other? Then I'd remember, she wasn't even curious about what I thought for dinner, let alone life. I tried fixing it the only way I knew, effort. Made her favorite pasta, lit a candle, even found the old playlist we used to dance to in the kitchen when rent was late. But love was easy. When she came home, I was proud of the setup. The lights were soft, the smell of garlic filled the air, Sinatra was playing. It felt like a moment. She stood in the doorway, exhausted. "What's all this?" "Dinner," I said. "Remember that thing couples do sometimes?" She sighed, dropped her bag and muttered, "I'm really not in the mood, okay? Maybe tomorrow." So I ate alone. The pasta was slightly overcooked, but not as overdone as our spark. I washed the dishes slowly, listening to the sound of the running water. It was the only thing in the house still flowing. One night, I caught my reflection in the dark TV screen. Blank face, tired eyes. The kind of look you get when you've been trying to start a car that doesn't want to run. That's when it hit me. We didn't fall out of love. We just stopped showing up for it. But then came the night she said it. The sentence that would replay in my head like a bad song you can't turn off. And suddenly, silence wasn't the worst thing between us anymore. It happened on a Sunday. The kind of lazy Sunday that used to mean coffee in bed, bad movies, and not caring if the laundry ever got done. Now it meant sitting on opposite ends of the couch, her with her phone, me pretending to watch some mindless show. I think the episode was about home renovation. Some couple arguing over whether they needed a bigger kitchen. I laughed to myself. Yeah, buddy, a bigger kitchen'll fix it. Nothing spices up a marriage like granite countertops and unresolved resentment. She glanced over. What's funny? Just us, I said. We'd make a great episode. Emotionally renovated. She didn't laugh. She never did anymore. An hour later, she finally spoke. Do you ever feel like we're friends now? I turned the volume down. Define now. You know what I mean, she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, a move that used to drive me crazy, now just part of her autopilot. It feels like we're roommates who care about each other, not like what? She hesitated. I could see her picking words like landmines. Not like lovers? There it was. The first crack. Soft voice, calm tone, but it hit like a brick to the ribs. I leaned back. Okay, so we're friends. At least we skipped the enemies phase. Progress, I guess? She sighed. You're not taking this seriously. I am, I said. You just labeled our marriage like a Netflix category. Light friendship, no romance, maybe renewed next season. See, she said, voice tightening. You always joke. You never talk. Because talking usually ends with me being the problem, I said quietly. She looked at me, surprised by the calmness. I'm not blaming you. Sure, I said, you're just diagnosing me. She got up to make coffee. I stayed on the couch, staring at the paused TV screen, where a happy couple hugged in their freshly renovated house. The irony wasn't lost on me. She came back, handed me a mug, and said it, casually, like she was ordering pizza. You're a great friend, she said, but you're a terrible lover. Silence. For a second, my brain didn't even process it. Then it did, and the room got colder. Wow, I said slowly, nodding. That's brutally specific feedback. Should I take notes? Don't do that, she said, rubbing her temples. I'm just being honest. Oh, honesty. Cool. Love that for us? I sipped the coffee. Bitter, fitting. Anything else you want to rate while we're at it? Husband skills, laundry technique, eye contact duration? Can you stop making jokes? She snapped. I can, I said, but they're the only thing still working between us. She exhaled, frustrated. You don't get it. I'm not trying to insult you. I don't feel the same spark anymore. Newsflash, I said. Neither do I. But I didn't think we were grading each other. Her voice softened, almost guilty. You're a good man, really. You've always been kind, patient, funny. Funny, I interrupted. Yeah, I've been killing it in the comedy department tonight. See, she said, that right there. You hide behind sarcasm instead of actually opening up. I looked at her and smiled faintly. Maybe because every time I open up, you use it for target practice. She blinked, caught off guard. That's not fair. Neither is being demoted to your good friend list, I said, setting the mug down. But here we are. We sat in silence for a long moment. The clock ticked like it was mocking us. Outside, it started to rain. Classic cliché, 10 out of 10 timing. She finally said, I didn't mean to hurt you. I shrugged. It's fine. Every relationship needs a performance review. Guess I failed intimacy, but nailed punctual bill payments. Can't you take anything seriously for once? she asked, frustrated. Sure, I said, but if I take this too seriously, I'll start realizing how messed up it is that my wife just called me a terrible lover over coffee. She didn't answer. That night, we went to bed like nothing happened. She turned off the light, rolled over, and within minutes, her breathing was steady, asleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying her words on a loop. You're a great friend, but a terrible lover. It wasn't even the insult that hurt. It was the tone, calm, sincere, like she was telling me my shirt didn't match my shoes. I wondered if she'd been thinking it for weeks, months, maybe years. Part of me wanted to be angry. Another part just felt numb, because deep down I knew she wasn't entirely wrong. But the way she said it, like it was something she'd been saving for the right moment, that's what cracked something inside me. Not anger, not heartbreak, just a quiet, tired realization that maybe love doesn't end in explosions. Sometimes it ends in a sentence said too softly to scream. The morning after her terrible lover announcement, we acted like it never happened. Classic married couple damage control. Denial wrapped in routine. She made coffee, I toasted bread, we exchanged the usual lines. Morning? Morning. You want eggs? Sure. It was like watching two coworkers pretending last night's fight in the break room didn't exist. I tried to look normal, or at least what normal looked like when your wife downgraded you to bestie status. She hummed quietly while buttering toast, as if nothing seismic had been said 12 hours ago. I wanted to ask her if she really meant it, but I already knew the answer. No one accidentally calls their spouse a terrible lover. A few days later, the silence settled in. It wasn't loud, angry silence. It was sterile, like hospital silence, clean, white, and absolutely lifeless. We still shared the same bed, the same house, the same routines, but we didn't share us. Every conversation became an exercise in politeness. Can you hand me the salt? Here. Thanks. Yep. That was it. That was our language now. Efficient, emotionless customer service. Sometimes I caught her staring at me, not with affection, not even with anger, just observation, like she was trying to figure out what to do with me. I started spending more time in the garage. It wasn't like I had a big project going. I just needed a space that didn't smell like quiet disappointment. I'd tinker with old tools, play random playlists, pretend I was fixing something. Maybe myself. Once she came out there with laundry in her arms. You're out here a lot lately, she said. Yeah, I replied. The garage doesn't critique my performance. She froze for half a second, then turned away. You're still upset. Upset? Nah, just embracing my new title. Friendly neighborhood disappointment. She sighed and left. I went back to pretending the wrench in my hand mattered. Nights became weirdly formal. She'd read a book in bed. I'd scroll on my phone. We were physically close, but emotionally galaxies apart. One evening she asked, "Are you ever going to talk to me about it?" About what? You know what? Oh, the part where you called me a terrible lover? Yeah, I had that written in my gratitude journal. Page 1. Can you stop with the sarcasm for 5 minutes? I can, I said, but then I'd have to actually process that the person I married thinks I'm more of a roommate than a partner. And I'm not ready for that kind of therapy tonight. She closed her book. You always make it impossible to fix things. Maybe because you broke them so casually. She didn't respond, just turned off the light and rolled away. It was our new nightly routine, one of us turning our back first. Over the next few weeks, we became experts at avoidance. She went out more, yoga, brunches, girls' nights. I started staying late at work, then going for long drives with the radio turned off. It wasn't about escaping her. It was about escaping the version of me she'd created, the great friend. Every time she texted "be safe" or "don't be late," it read like HR-approved concern. No warmth, just protocol. One Friday night, she came home earlier than usual. I was on the couch watching a stand-up special, trying to laugh louder than my thoughts. She dropped her purse and said, "We need to talk." I muted the TV. Wow. My favorite phrase. She folded her arms. "This can't keep going like this." "You're being distant," I laughed. "I'm being distant? You're the one who turned intimacy into a Yelp review? That's not fair. Neither was the delivery, but here we are." She glared at me. "You think this is easy for me? You think I wanted to hurt you?" "No," I said quietly. "I think you wanted to feel something. And I just wasn't that something anymore." She blinked. No comeback. That one landed. The next day, I found her sitting in the living room, scrolling through photos on her phone. Old ones. Us at the beach, us cooking, us laughing over nothing. "Remember this?" she asked, showing me a picture of us covered in flour after a baking disaster. "Yeah," I said. "That was back when we thought love could fix bad recipes." She smiled faintly. "We were so stupid." "Yeah," I said, meeting her eyes. "Stupid was more fun." For a second, just one, the air softened. But then it passed. Moments like that were like ghosts. You saw them, but they never stayed. The quiet war dragged on. Small things turned into emotional landmines. If I forgot to buy milk, you don't listen. If she left dishes in the sink, you're being passive-aggressive. If I said goodnight, why do you sound so cold? It was like we were competing for who could care less. Sometimes I wondered if she regretted saying it. Other times I wondered if she meant it even more now. But the truth was simpler. We were both just tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of the gap we couldn't close. One night, I found myself sitting alone in the kitchen around midnight, eating cereal straight from the box. She walked in, half asleep, wearing one of my old shirts. "You okay?" she asked softly. "Yeah," I said. "Just having dinner at a very emotionally stable hour." She smiled a little despite herself. "You're ridiculous." "Yeah," I said, "but at least I'm consistently ridiculous." She sat across from me, chin in her hands. For a second we looked at each other, really looked. Then she whispered, "I don't know how we got here." "Neither do I said. "But I think the GPS stopped working around the time you called me your great friend." She sighed, eyes wet but calm. "I didn't mean it the way it sounded," I smirked. "Oh, good. So I'm a mediocre lover with great potential?" That earned a laugh, a real one, small but real. And somehow, that was the first moment in weeks that didn't feel like war. That laugh didn't fix us, but it cracked the ice a little. Enough for the possibility of something human to come through again. The next night, she made dinner. I didn't comment. The night after that, she sat next to me on the couch without her phone. No big talk yet, no apologies, just quiet proximity. It was fragile, awkward, but it was something. And maybe, just maybe, that was where rebuilding had to start. Not with fireworks, but with small, hesitant laughs between the ruins. But no, something else happened. 2 weeks after our honest talk, things were weirdly calm. Not fixed, not warm, just polite. We started acting like two diplomats who signed a ceasefire but didn't trust each other's army. Then came the flowers. Literal, colorful, I might be in trouble flowers. It was a Thursday. I came home early. She was in the kitchen talking on the phone, smiling. A smile I hadn't seen in months. And on the counter sat a bouquet. Huge, elegant, expensive looking. I froze. "Wow," I said. "Did we win a beauty pageant or something?" She looked over, surprised. "Oh, these? They're from a colleague, for helping him with a project." "Uh-huh," I said, picking up the little card attached. "Thank you for your support. You make every meeting brighter." "Wow, that's aggressively professional." She reached to take the card from me, but I held it out of reach. "So tell me," I said, keeping my voice casual. Are you hiring for the position of someone who makes meetings brighter? Because I might need to update my resume? She rolled her eyes. It's just flowers, Tom. Yeah, sure, I said. And I'm just overreacting. Because clearly men send random bouquets to married women all the time. Totally standard corporate policy. Stop being ridiculous, she said, taking the card. He's married. It's nothing. Oh, good, I said. That always makes it better. Married men are famously safe options. Tom, she snapped. Why do you always have to turn everything into a joke? Because if I don't, I said, I'll sound like a jealous idiot asking if his wife is secretly running auditions for a better lover. She went silent. The air thickened. Then she muttered, You can't be serious right now. Oh, I'm dead serious, I said, leaning on the counter. You dropped the terrible lover bomb, and now some dude sends you roses with a Hallmark-level compliment? Forgive me if I start connecting the dots. They're lilies, she said coldly. Ah, yes, my mistake. Nothing says purely professional like sending someone funeral flowers for a dying marriage. She slammed the fridge shut. You're unbelievable. No, I said, voice dropping. What's unbelievable is how easily you brush off anything that makes you look guilty. Guilty? She said. You think I'm cheating because of flowers? I think, I said, that you like being reminded someone else still sees you. Because God forbid your boring husband who folds your laundry says you're beautiful. That doesn't count anymore, right? That one landed hard. She froze, eyes wet but sharp. You think I asked for this? She said quietly. You think I wanted to feel wanted by someone else? You think I don't hate that it feels nice? Silence, heavy, honest, terrifying. I didn't know what to say. My sarcasm suddenly felt too small for the truth hanging in the air. She whispered, I've felt invisible for months, Tom. And yeah, maybe getting flowers from someone, even if it meant nothing, reminded me I still exist. That stung. Not the cheating part, but the existence part. I looked at her and said, You could have told me that instead of killing me with compliments about my friendship skills. She laughed through tears. I didn't know how. You joke about everything. Yeah, I said softly, because when I stop joking, I start feeling. And feelings around you lately feel like stepping barefoot on glass. We both stood there, breathing hard, staring at that stupid bouquet like it was the third person in our marriage. Then she reached over, picked up the flowers, and threw them straight into the trash. I blinked. Well, guess HR won't be happy about that. She laughed. Real broken, relieved laughter. You're such an idiot. Yeah, I said, smiling faintly, but at least I'm your idiot. That night, she came to bed first. I expected more distance, but instead, she reached for my hand under the blanket. No words, just a quiet, warm touch that said, I'm still here. And maybe, for the first time in months, that was enough. The morning after the flower fight was surprisingly peaceful. No screaming, no icy silence, no awkward apology breakfast. Just coffee, sunlight, and two people pretending not to replay last night in their heads. She stood by the counter, hair messy, wearing my old hoodie again, the same one from the Honest Talk night. That hoodie had officially seen more emotional trauma than any therapist's office. I poured coffee, handed her a mug. Peace offering, I said. She took it carefully, like I might still throw sarcasm in it. Thanks. We both sipped in silence. Then she said, So, about yesterday. Oh, you mean the part where I accused you of hosting auditions for Best Lover 2025? Yeah, solid evening overall. She laughed despite herself. You really don't know when to stop, do you? Nope, I said. It's one of my worst, or best, qualities. Depends who you ask. She put the mug down. You know, for what it's worth, I didn't realize how much it would bother you. I raised an eyebrow. You got a bouquet from another guy. You don't need a degree in psychology to predict mild irritation. It's not that, she said. It's just, I didn't expect you to care that much anymore. That hit harder than I expected. I wanted to reply with a joke, but the words didn't come. Finally, I said, "Of course I care. You think I'd get jealous over someone I've stopped loving? I'm not that petty." She smiled softly. "You sure?" "Okay, maybe a little petty," I admitted. But the flowers helped. Later that day, she texted me at work. "Dinner out tonight? My treat." I stared at the message for a good minute. My brain immediately started calculating. Either she was planning an apology or a trap. Still, I replied, "If there's wine, I'm in." That night, we went to this small Italian place we used to love, back when we still flirted instead of fact-checked each other's emotions. The same waiter was still there, older, probably just as tired of couples pretending everything was fine. When we sat down, she smiled awkwardly. "This feels weird." "Yeah," I said. "It's like a sequel no one asked for." "Maybe it's a reboot," she said. New tone. Same cast. "Let's hope it's not canceled halfway through," I replied. Dinner went better than I expected. She asked about my day. I made her laugh twice, a world record for the last few months. We even shared dessert. 1 spoon, 2 people, and 0 passive aggression. Then she looked at me and said quietly, "You know, when I said that thing, the terrible lover part, I didn't mean just physically." "Oh, good," I said, because I was about to start Googling performance tutorials. She snorted. "I meant emotionally. I felt like you stopped being with me even when you were right next to me." "Fair," I said. "But that's kind of a 2-player game, don't you think?" "I know," she said. I shut down too. I just didn't realize how deep we'd both gone into autopilot. We sat there for a while, letting that honesty breathe. Then she said, half smiling, "You think we can fix it?" "I don't know," I said. "But I think we can at least stop actively breaking it." A week later, she surprised me again. I came home to find a sticky note on the fridge that said, "Pack a bag. Don't ask questions." For a second, I thought it was divorce papers written in code. But no. It was her idea of starting over. We drove 2 hours out of the city to this quiet lake house she'd rented. The car ride was awkward at first, the kind of silence that wants to be comfortable but keeps tripping over old memories. Eventually, I broke it. "So, remind me, are we on a romantic getaway or a relationship survival workshop?" She grinned. "Depends. If you behave, it's romantic. Great. I'll lower my sarcasm levels to medium." The place was beautiful. Wooden deck, soft lighting, smell of pine everywhere. Inside, one big bed that somehow felt like both a challenge and a dare. I said, "You know, this looks like the kind of place where people in movies fix their marriages by chopping wood and confessing feelings." "Good," she said, handing me a drink. "Then grab an axe and start talking." That evening, we sat by the lake with a bottle of wine. No big speeches, no forced romance, just quiet conversation, laughter that came easier, and occasional teasing. She looked at me over the rim of her glass and said, "So, still think I'm trying to replace you?" "Depends," I said. "You still accepting applications?" She nudged me with her shoulder. "Idiot." "I know," I said, smiling, "but I'm your idiot. Remember? That night, for the first time in months, everything felt easy again. No pretending, no awkwardness, just us, stupid and human, but somehow still connected. We didn't talk about fixing everything. We didn't make promises. We just existed together, laughing, touching, breathing, and for once, that felt like enough. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight pouring through the curtains. She was still asleep beside me, hair messy, face peaceful. I watched her for a minute, thinking about everything. The silence, the sarcasm, the jealousy, the flowers, the fight. Maybe this was what marriage really was. Not a straight line, but a cycle of getting lost and finding each other again. I leaned over and whispered, "Hey, just so you know, I'm still a terrible lover." She groaned, eyes half open. "Tom." "But," I said, smirking, I'm officially the best friend you'll ever have." She laughed, pulled me closer and said, "Shut up and prove it." People always talk about marriage like it's this steady climb, like you just keep going up, hand in hand, step by step, always in sync. They don't tell you that sometimes you're not climbing together. Sometimes one of you is hanging off the edge, and the other is staring at the view, pretending not to notice. And sometimes, you both just sit there, too damn tired to care whether you're still moving. That was us. We went through the silence, the sarcasm, the jealousy, and the flowers. God, especially the flowers. And somehow, instead of burning out, we stumbled into something we hadn't had in a long time. Honesty. Ugly, messy, inconvenient honesty. Now, months later, things aren't perfect. They never will be. But we learned something important. We stopped expecting perfection to save us. We still argue. We still misread each other. She still leaves her coffee cups everywhere, and I still make stupid jokes at the worst possible time. But there's warmth again. The small, everyday kind. The kind that shows up when she leans on my shoulder during a boring show, or when I wake up and find her wearing my hoodie, making coffee in the kitchen, humming off key. It's funny. I used to think passion was all fireworks and grand gestures. Turns out, it's just choosing each other again after you've seen the worst parts. Every once in a while, one of us brings up the flowers incident, usually as a joke. Like the time she came home with a small bouquet from the grocery store and said, "Don't worry, these are from me to me. You're safe." Or when I left a sticky note on her mirror that said, "From your terrible lover, now 10% improved." She laughed so hard she nearly cried. And maybe that's our thing now. Turning the worst moments into private jokes. It's our weird version of healing. There's this moment every night now. We're in bed, the lights are off, and she's reading something on her phone while I scroll through random nonsense. And then she just reaches over, finds my hand in the dark, and squeezes it. No words. Just that quiet, unspoken, "I'm still here." And every time, I squeeze back. Not because everything's okay, but because we're both still trying, and that's better than okay. If you ask me what changed us, I'd probably say it wasn't the big talks or the dramatic fights. It was the stupid little things, the laughter that slipped out during arguments, the sarcastic lines that somehow carried truth, the moments we almost gave up but didn't. Marriage, I think, isn't about staying in love every single day. It's about not walking away when you don't. Because love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, a shared look, a bad joke, a hand in the dark. A few weeks ago, we were having dinner, and out of nowhere, she said, "You know, you've gotten better." I raised an eyebrow. "Better how?" She smirked. "In every department." I laughed. "So I'm officially promoted from terrible lover to decent one?" She grinned. "You're overqualified now." I raised my glass. Finally. Took 3 years and 1 floral scandal. But we got there. She rolled her eyes, laughing. "God, you'll never let that go." "Of course not," I said. "It's part of our legend." Sometimes I still think about that first version of us. The silent dinners, the cold nights, the distance we both built. And I realized that we didn't need to go back to who we were. We needed to burn down the old version so something real could grow. We learned how to fight without destroying each other. We learned that love isn't always romantic. Sometimes it's just survival, patience, and a really bad sense of humor. And somehow, that's more beautiful than anything we had before. So yeah, I guess I'm still the guy who jokes too much, and she's still the woman who rolls her eyes but secretly loves it. But when she looks at me now, I don't feel like her great friend. I feel like her person. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.